Starmer government already seems to have hit a few problems. Those cuts to the winter heating payments, plenty of tension on the street.
No, and he got in with a very low proportion of the vote. He got in by default because people were unhappy with the Conservatives. They voted Labour. They didn't particularly like him. He's been accepting more freebies than any other MP in Parliament. But meanwhile, because of their disastrous economic policies, they are cutting payments to old people.
Liz Truss, the shortest-serving PM in British history, just delivered a bombshell that's left Keir Starmer reeling. In a shocking live TV confrontation, Truss exposed a dark secret that could unravel Starmer's entire political career. As Starmer fumbled for words, the nation watched in disbelief. What hidden truth did Truss unveil, and why is it causing such a stir in British politics? The answer might just change everything you thought you knew about Labour's leader. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Liz Truss, once the laughingstock of British politics, has suddenly found herself in an unexpected position of influence. Her 49-day tenure as Prime Minister was nothing short of disastrous.
Just on that point about energy, I want to ask you about their big push on net zero. What do you make of the fact that the West is basically, we're deindustrialising ourselves?
While India and China are building more coal-fired power stations, getting more oil and gas, we in Britain have ended up closing down our oil and gas. This is what's happening under this Labour government. The problem is we have a Labour Party now in government who are saying that climate change is more of a threat to the future of the world than China. Now that simply isn't true.
Marked by economic turmoil and public ridicule. Who can forget the infamous lettuce that outlasted her premiership? Yet, in a twist that surprised even her harshest critics, Truss has re-emerged as a vocal opponent of Keir Starmer's Labour leadership. The contrast between Truss's past failures and her recent bold statements against Starmer is striking. While her time at number 10 was characterised by U-turns and market chaos, her criticisms of Starmer have been sharp and resonant. She's called out his flip-flopping on key issues and questioned his ability to lead the country through challenging times. What's truly remarkable is how Truss's message is beginning to resonate with a frustrated electorate. Many voters, disillusioned with Starmer's perceived lack of clear vision, are finding themselves nodding along with Truss's critiques. It's a shift in public perception that few could have predicted just months ago. Recent polling data paints a clear picture of this changing landscape. Truss's popularity, while still not soaring, has seen a modest uptick. Meanwhile, Starmer's approval ratings have been on a steady decline. A YouGov poll from last month showed Starmer's net favourability dropping by 5 points, while Truss saw a 3-point increase. But the question on everyone's mind is, what could Truss possibly reveal that would shake Starmer's leadership to its core? The political grapevine is buzzing with speculation. Some suggest she has insider information from her time in government, while others wonder if she's uncovered financial improprieties within the Labour Party. As unlikely as it may seem, Truss has emerged as an unexpected voice for the disillusioned, challenging the political establishment she was once a part of. Her transformation from a political punchline to a thorn in Starmer's side is a testament to the unpredictable nature of British politics. So, what exactly did Truss say that's causing such a stir? Her accusations against Starmer are more than just political mudslinging. They strike at the very heart of his carefully cultivated image as a principled leader. In a twist worthy of a political thriller, Liz Truss has turned the tables on Keir Starmer. Her accusations paint a picture of a Labour leader who's not just flip-flopping on policies, but potentially engaging in financial impropriety. Are we witnessing the unravelling of Starmer's carefully crafted persona? Truss's bombshell allegations strike at the heart of Starmer's reputation as a principled leader.
Well, I think the problem in Britain has got much worse, and it got worse during the Blair government, because he put in lots of legislation like the Human Rights Act, like the Equality Act, that ended up tying politicians' hands. The problem is that in Britain, the bureaucrats' power has grown over time. So more power that used to rest in the hands of MPs now lies in the hands of the Bank of England. It just takes time to get the legislation through, and it takes politicians with courage And there has been a massive courage deficit on the Conservative side.
She's accused him of accepting questionable donations, including funds allegedly used to pay for his wife's clothing. It's a far cry from the image of integrity Starmer has worked so hard to cultivate. The Labour leader, who's built his career on being the adult in the room, now finds himself at the centre of a storm about ethical lapses. But it's not just about fancy outfits. Truss has also pointed the finger at Starmer for taking funds from pensioners. She claims his policies, like cuts to winter fuel payments, have left many elderly citizens struggling. It's a damning accusation that paints Starmer as out of touch with the very people he claims to represent. The plot thickens with the involvement of Labour peer Wahid Ali. His financial support for Starmer has raised eyebrows and questions about potential strings attached. It's the kind of connection that makes voters wonder, who's really pulling the strings in the Labour Party? The public reaction to these revelations has been swift and fierce. Social media is ablaze with hashtags like Joe Starmer scandal and Labour donation gate. Opinion pieces are popping up faster than you can say political donations, with titles like Has Starmer Sold Out? And The Emperor's New Clothes, Starmer's Ethical Dilemma. But the real question is, how will these accusations impact Starmer's credibility? He's already facing a backlash from his own supporters, who are questioning his actions amid rising costs and a sense of unfulfilled promises. If these allegations stick, it could be the final nail in the coffin for Starmer's leadership ambitions. As the dust settles, one thing is clear. This scandal has ignited a national debate on political integrity and transparency. Voters are demanding answers, and they're not settling for the usual political spin. But Truss isn't done yet. She's got more to say about Starmer's policies, and something tells me it won't be pretty. Remember those rousing speeches about abolishing tuition fees and creating a fairer economy? Starmer's supporters certainly do. But as winter bites and living costs soar, many are left wondering, where did those grand promises go? Truss has unleashed a scathing critique of Starmer's policy record, and it's not pretty. The Labour leader, once hailed as a beacon of hope, now finds himself under fire for a series of policy failures and unfulfilled campaign promises.
A book is being written about the Prime Minister's time in office. Apparently, it's going to be out by Christmas. Is that the release date or the title?
I have been in office for just under 2 months, and I have delivered the energy price guarantee, making sure that people aren't paying £6,000 bills this winter. Now what, Mr. Speaker? I think, Mr. Speaker, that is more of a record of action than the honourable gentleman in his 2.5 years in the job.
From economic mismanagement to immigration blunders, Starmer's leadership is looking increasingly shaky. Let's start with the economy. Starmer promised a fairer economic system, but under his watch, living costs have skyrocketed. Families are struggling to make ends meet, and public services are facing brutal cuts. It's a far cry from the prosperity he pledged during his campaign. And what about those promises to abolish university tuition fees? They seem to have vanished into thin air, leaving students saddled with debt and feeling betrayed. But it's the treatment of the elderly that's really raising eyebrows. Truss has highlighted cuts to winter fuel payments that have left pensioners shivering in their homes during harsh winters. It's a cruel irony for a party that claims to champion the vulnerable. The impact of these policy failures is being felt across different segments of society. Young people are losing faith in Starmer's ability to deliver on education reform. Working families are buckling under the pressure of rising costs. And the elderly, once a reliable Labour support base, are feeling abandoned and disillusioned. So, how are these policy failures affecting Starmer's support base? The cracks are beginning to show. Labour Party members are grumbling, and some are even calling for a leadership challenge. Social media is awash with frustrated voters vowing to withhold their support in the next election. As public frustration grows, Starmer's leadership is looking increasingly precarious. The disconnect between his lofty speeches and the harsh reality of his policies is becoming impossible to ignore. Voters are left wondering, is this the principled leadership they were promised, or just another case of political bait and switch? The accusations against Starmer are serious, and they're piling up fast. But how is he responding to this onslaught? His reaction could make or break his political future. As the dust settled from Truss's explosive revelations, all eyes turned to Starmer. His reaction? Let's just say it wasn't exactly a masterclass in crisis management. In fact, it might be remembered as one of the most spectacular political own goals in recent British history. Starmer's initial response to Truss's allegations was characterised by a surprising lack of urgency. Instead of addressing the serious accusations head-on, he seemed to dance around the issues, leaving many observers scratching their heads. It's as if he thought ignoring the problem would make it disappear. Spoiler alert, it didn't. When Starmer finally did attempt to defend himself, his efforts came across as weak and unconvincing. Media coverage of his response highlighted several cringeworthy gaffes that only served to further damage his credibility. One particularly memorable moment saw Starmer fumbling over his words when asked directly about the donations for his wife's clothing. The uncomfortable silence that followed spoke volumes. The public reaction to Starmer's handling of the situation has been nothing short of brutal. Social media platforms have been flooded with users expressing disbelief and frustration. The irony of finding themselves agreeing with Liz Truss, of all people, hasn't been lost on many. Hashtags like #OneStarmerStumbles and Labour leadership crisis have been trending for days. Even Starmer's own supporters are beginning to express doubts about his leadership. With rising living costs and a growing sense of broken promises, the backlash isn't limited to his political opponents. Labour Party members are grumbling, and some are even whispering about the need for a leadership challenge. Political analysts have been quick to criticise Starmer's approach to crisis management. Many suggest that his failure to respond decisively to Truss's allegations reflects deeper issues within his leadership style and strategy. It's as if he's still playing by the old political rulebook in a game that's dramatically changed. As the dust settles on this political earthquake, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. Starmer's reputation may be damaged beyond repair. His fumbling response has left many wondering if he's truly fit to lead the Labour Party, let alone the country. The contrast between his carefully cultivated image as a principled leader and the reality of his actions couldn't be starker. So, what does this mean for the future of British politics? As trust in established leaders crumbles, the landscape is shifting beneath our feet. This unexpected confrontation between Truss and Starmer has revealed deep-seated issues that can no longer be ignored. The public is demanding accountability, and the future of leadership in the UK hangs in the balance.